Carrollton, and I have got some art that I brought with me. It's kind of a found object art that you can pick things from everyday life and turn them into art, and you don't really have to be an artist, if there is such a thing. So I brought different examples of what you can do, like this. The original canvas has pieces of paper that were torn and glued on there and then painted. The second canvas is buttons that had been gessoed and then painted. These strange looking things are actually tissue paper that was rolled into little worms, and then I just glued it and ran it around the edge. I made a little face out of clay, but the rest of it is all pretty much found stuff. I will tell you that gesso is your friend. The thing about found objects is sometimes it can look like, okay, I emptied my pockets and I glued it onto a canvas. So the thing you want to think about is making everything uniform. What I did here, and I haven't glued these yet, because once you glue it, time's up. You can't go back and change it for the most part. But what I did was I painted all of this stuff with gesso black, all these little objects. Some people like to do their canvas in black as well and then add color to it. I wanted to have a little bit of stuff going on in the background, so I did some stenciling with modeling paste. I actually took some papers, and it kind of came to me. This I got at a junk store. It's a mechanic's handbook. And old books are very helpful just to add some character. You can't really see a whole lot of what those are, but if you look closely, it just gives it another layer. Like there's some from the book, smears of paint, whatever. Some of the objects, first, this. You can use black paint, but gesso is really better because it gives it tooth, is what they say. It's like paint that has, you can make your own gesso, paint with marble dust in it. So it's almost like chalk paint, and it just makes things stick, and it doesn't have a shine like a paint would. So I took all of these objects, and it takes a while. It's not something that you can just do it in one day. So that's why I kind of brought different stages of stuff. But this is just a small sampling of all the little pieces of junk that I have. And for instance, tacky. I mean, it's this, I think it was $2 on Amazon. But when you do that to it, it becomes something else. And it gives it, again, a lot of different texture. I used one of those there. So really, after I did all this, you know, this is simply a stamp that's on envelope. The inside of a privacy envelope that you get all day long from your bank or whatever makes great decorative paper. So I just did a stencil with some paint. And when I glue this, the other thing you want to remember is, so it doesn't look like, oh, I grabbed a bunch of stuff out of my pocket and glued it on. In addition to making it kind of have a uniform color scheme, you also want to stack things. Like if you just have everything sitting there, you don't get the depth. So what I do, I mean, this is a bolt or a nut or a washer, whatever. But when I put it on here, which this is just a little knob for being on a cupboard that I got at Ollie's, or not Ollie's, but Robinson's. It was so cheap. They had them for like $1. So there's all kind of things. Shells become something different when you paint them. Another favorite, puzzle pieces. And that leads me to this. Found objects don't always have to be a pile of stuff. I used puzzle pieces for this, painted them, and just did a decorative background. So it doesn't look like a found object project, but it really is, because these are puzzle pieces. Same thing going on here. Stencils. This is actually a little card that I got at IKEA. This is a button. These are little pieces of paper, again, torn and painted. You just kind of have to try different things, and this is that stuff, that no slip stuff, I think. That comes in handy a lot. This was plastic. It was off some toy or something. Again, it's a clipboard. Obviously, it's a found object. This is gauze, like you would make a bandage from, and I painted it. This is clay, seashell, clay mold, it's plastic again. So it doesn't have to be odd things. This is actually, and it's not done because the background is going to be all black. It's pieces of paper that I had just played around with watercolors and other things like that. And I didn't know what I was going to do with them. So then I thought, oh, well, I'll make something of those scraps. So I ended up just gluing them in a circle. The black here it's caulk. I have a little caulk gun and I squirted some out into different patterns and then I painted it. So you would never know. This, again, it's kind of a mix. Obviously I didn't find this. I found the pattern, I cut it out, I decorated it. These, however, you recognize them? Mm-hmm. The little twirly things that come out of a tree.
Helicopter seeds or whatever they're called.
Yes, yes.
Somebody in the comments, feel free to tell us what they're actually called. We are not scientists, but artists and librarians.
Twirly things. And this, again, is just, it's a piece of the back of corrugated cardboard that's been painted and played with by my cat, actually. This, now, I did make these letters out of a mold with resin, but again, you could use anything for that. Monopoly house, Monopoly car, dice, obviously. This is from a game, some old-timey game that I found at a junk shop, and half the pieces were missing, but I could still use some of it to do what I wanted to do. So there's just lots of options in what you can do with stuff. But this is really the one that when you say found art or objects or whatever, this is what people think of. So I just wanted you to know there are different options. But again, the things that you would use, you would never think, oh, okay, that'll make, again, this is what those puzzle pieces look like. This is for a key. But once it's painted, and a little silver applied, it looks completely different. Then if you add something else on top of it, and again, these are all kind of messed up because I drove here in the car and I have not glued them down. But then you can start playing with the arrangement.
The natural assembly, if you like, I hear you.
Exactly. I'm just thankful that it didn't all end up on the floor of my car. So, but yeah, there's little cardboard cutouts, whoopsie, not important. Buttons are really, really good for this because again, once everything is a uniform color, which that needs some more gesso on it, it's a Monopoly hotel. What else is fun? This is from a bag of clementines, either clementines or onions, but I just ripped a piece of it and painted it with gesso. And then it becomes, once you put something behind it, it just gives it that depth that you want to see. So it doesn't look like, oh, hey, I just glued a bunch of stuff out of my pocket. Okay. And just a couple more things I wanted to cover before we sit down and start doing some of this. Again, found objects don't have to actually be objects. Sometimes you can find stuff that's fun and cool, but there's also natural stuff. I did find a poker chip when I was out walking around Lake Carroll on the ground, and I used that in a piece of art. So you'll start looking at things differently. You'll find yourself scanning. Can I use that? Can I use that? And it makes it hard to throw stuff away. But this is another example of, it's not really objects, But these are all pine cones that were gathered at Lake Carroll, and these little things were actually picked up at one of the trailheads for the Greenbelt, and then of course it was all painted, and it took quite a while. But the investment in this is probably paint, and then I bought a wreath and some greenery. But otherwise it's all found natural stuff that you can incorporate into your art. So now I'm gonna sit here, and I wanted to explain a little bit about the rest of the process. Fishing sinkers, because they're fun. Again, I like to call this Evil 6000. I'm not plugging it, but it is great glue. It's kind of blurpy, and if that's a word. It comes in black or clear. Normally, you can see I use the clear, but on something like this where the background is dark, even though it dries clear, I would probably use the black on this. And again, this is the gesso. This is cheap gesso. It's not, you don't have to spend $1 million. Some of the other things you can do, again, I was talking about the papers that I tore. Again, this was just when I first started doing art, I was really having fun with just coloring backgrounds. So you could conceivably just, you know, take, this is, I think it's watercolor or mixed media paper, and just tear it and do all kinds of different things with it. Again, the no-slip stuff, I painted this, and I've used this as well as the clementine or onion bag or whatever it is. But what you're gonna do, and again, there's more, this is where I wanted to go with these, and you're also borrowing from a lot of different artists and art styles. This is actually a piece of this that I just doodled. I painted it and then I doodled because it's, you know, keeps my mind occupied. And then I cut little strips and just glued them. They're actually paper beads is what they're called because they have the hole in the middle. But I could use that on something. You'll see that, again, this is a piece of a book, it's a page of a book. It's been rolled up and gessoed. And now it becomes, you don't see, oh, okay, that's a page out of a book. It becomes something that adds interest and texture. So, that being said, I was gonna say we could glue some of this. We can also paint some more things black. I will tell you as well. I ordered these from Amazon, and you can get it, you know, at a craft store. I don't even know, maybe Walmart or somewhere like that. It's just kind of a creamy wax. These were really cheap because I don't spend a lot of money on art supplies. But what I did, because otherwise, of course, you just have a bunch of stuff with no color. And I didn't finish this on purpose because I wanted to show you what I did. I painted everything with the black gesso, and then I went back in and the fun part is playing with the colors. And I just, okay, where do I want to, that's got some good detail. It looks completely different once you add that little bit of silver. A lot of people do different colors. You could do a theme of like pinks and purples or whatever you want to do. It's whatever feels good to you. The nice thing also with this, if I hated this, all I have to do is slap a little more gesso on and I can do something else. Again, this, I stuck a butterfly on there. It was from the dollar store. It's a sticker. This, I don't even know. It was part of something that I found around the house. The top of an acorn. So it really, try not to look at the stuff as what it is. Just look at the shape of it. How will it look if it's black? And when you first start doing it, again, you're gonna have that feeling of, oh, this just looks like I glued a bunch of random stuff onto a canvas. That's where making it all kind of uniform and then highlighting it. This, think was part of a key ring, one of those little things that you put your keys on. So more caulk that's been painted. So what I would normally do is just take a piece of whatever. I've done coins. You'll find that there's nickel, penny, dime. You can really do anything. Old jewelry is great. This. Now, I probably wouldn't use this on here simply because I don't want to part with it. I'm waiting for the perfect project, but here's what that butterfly looked like. And then once it's painted black, again, a piece of gauze that's been painted. I think that's going to be worked in there somewhere. I'll probably make it darker. The keys that you get in the mail. This could start your brand new car. We're giving away a car. Things like that. Just weird. You can see the difference. Otherwise, it would look like I just glued this bolt. But once you paint it black, and then this looks ridiculous. You know, kind of like what were you?
Ridiculous art.
Yeah. But then once you paint it black, now again, what adds to it is just kind of highlight it with that silver, and it makes it something else. And now it matches with. So to start the process, again, you can do this in a million different ways. Don't be scared of the blank canvas, but it can be intimidating. So a good thing to do is just slap something on there because you're going to cover it almost entirely. So it really doesn't matter, but it does give it, again, that background texture and character and interest that just a plain canvas with stuff glued on it wouldn't have. So basically I took an old book, we're in the right place for that. It was already ripped up. I know it's sacrilege to rip up a book. So now I have something going on this. Just that simple. So I use these a lot. They're just foam packages from the grocery store because I feel bad when I throw them away without doing something with them. So again, we've got this done. Now normally I would let this dry maybe overnight, or I would use a heat tool because that's going to affect how it looks. But I want the things that I'm going to paint to pop, so I don't want this to be the focus. Probably what I would do, just, again, don't fret too much about this or let yourself worry about it because you're going to cover it up. If you don't like it, you can always slap another page of a book on there. It's really not something that you want to be constantly grading yourself on. There we go. Oh, like ketchup. There we go. Woo! Woo! I want to get it on me. Okay, so just regular paint, and then you can tell that this stuff gets hotly dried out. I get this cheap gesso. But I want to lighten it up so it doesn't just look like, again, I've slapped some gray paint on it. Sometimes I'll put water in with it because I really want it to not take over. Matter of fact, I'm trying to put the words into the background, but yet still let some of it show. Pour the whole thing. So now it's just kind of a mushy gunmetal gray. So, and again, I apologize because this glue isn't dry, but what I'm doing is just kind of putting that in the background so it still gives texture and interest, but it's not the main focus. And if I don't like this, I'll go back and do something else. I might do some modeling paste on there. Stencils with modeling paste in them are great because they give you some raised texture. The nice thing about the found objects is they already give you good texture, so you don't have to do any of that. So there it is. it looks like, wow, what a mess. And I put way too much paint on there, but that's okay. So these are technically not found objects. I found them at Hobby Lobby.
Yeah, we still found it.
Yeah.
Where you found it. You found it in the stove.
Yes.
Just have to also find money to get it. That's a different story.
Yes. And it's basically just a bunch of gears. Another thing that I would probably want to use with this, again, with lots of different shapes and all kinds of stuff. And I'll use some of the things that I've already colored just because it's faster. But normally what I would do is I would paint these either white or black, or it could be bright blue, and just have that as kind of a theme. It doesn't have to be a muted color. So let's, like I said, I used way too much paint, but I could use it later. And I would probably do, this thing can spin sometimes, I would probably do the sides as well with this kind of gray taupey color. Again, because you always want to do the whole, you don't want to hang it on your wall and see the sides. So, just some.
Yeah, that was one of the things I had to learn to do as like when I was doing art. I did not know about that, and I would hang up art in galleries like that, and it did not look good.
Yeah, I think we've all done that. So, okay, we're gonna take one of these, and you could even do it with, I apologize, it's hard to see because I've already painted over this on this little foam tray. Again, it's really just, and remember that that has white gesso in it, so it has that tooth in it that it's gonna grab the paint. So normally, the only time you would need to sand something, if it's plastic, it probably wouldn't hurt to just give it a little go over with some sandpaper. But again, there it is. It's not dry, but it doesn't matter because we're going to put it on there just to kind of illustrate what we're doing. This, again, this is a piece of netting, again, from something, some bag of something, and you can see that it's plastic. And I painted it for another project. So just to give this a little, again, you don't want to do all objects. You want to put in different kinds of textures. That's where the paper comes in. And you can do metal objects. You can do, I love moss. I have kind of a strange affinity for moss. So I use that a lot. And again, it's really simple. The hardest part of this is probably waiting for it to dry so you can start playing with it. But again, we're not going to do that because we can always...
It's a texture. The wet paint is a texture, and that's our excuse.
Exactly. So again, and I'm just laying this stuff out, and you really want to get it on there and then start playing with where you want it. But you want to find, okay, what do I want to use for this? Again, the one that we looked at before was kind of a metallic type theme, I suppose, that I was going for. I don't know where I put my little white piece, but we're not going to worry about that. So, again, a bolt. Just put that in there. And I'm going to cheat and use some of these that I've already painted. These I love. They're computer keyboard. Everybody's had a keyboard go bad, but when you put that in art, it becomes something. Especially, I love those wake up, sleep, and what was the other one? I mean, right there you've got kind of a theme where you could do these. Another thing to keep in mind, an odd number of objects is always what you want to go for. It's more pleasing to the eye. I'm sure there's a name for the phenomenon, but an odd number of objects. Now, of course, when you get into a huge project like this, where you're putting all kinds of little, huge, but you don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's it. But if you're doing something less, like there's less of the objects, just remember to do an odd number. And And I've got a piece of an old clock, just a hand from an old clock. Again, it's all stuff that is just kind of different. And if you saw it without the paint on it, you would think, but once you get it, this is a hanger for something or other, earring, or who knows.
Socks.
Yeah, exactly. But again, once it's painted and you start putting it on there, the black pulls it together. And then, I mean, you don't want everything to always be black and white. So you could really do, I haven't played with these a whole lot, but you could do, that's kind of a gold color. And just, again, just take it, just enough to give it kind of an accent so it doesn't look like, okay, I just glued a bunch of stuff after I painted it. That becomes something else. And if I don't like the hook, although now that it's,
that looks nice.
Yeah, now that it's got that little bit of shimmer on it, it totally became something different.
Yeah.
The key, again. And I don't know if I would use all of it because, again, you don't want to end up where, oh, she glued a bunch of stuff on there. But because it's black and it's got that little shimmer on it, I might do something like, and again, I'm just smearing off the gold that I already had on my hand. Again, some people like to do, let's say we wanted blue and gold. My fingers are atrocious.
That's what happens when you do art. You can't.
I always walk around looking like I.
Yeah.
Okay, and then again, you can do colors, and if I don't like this blue, oh, it's a little, it doesn't show up as well as I want it to. I could paint it black again, but okay, I don't want to do that. I want to play some more. Let's get some of this white and see what happens. And that just brings out the texture of the flower. Because really it's a burlap flower that, again, I got it. It's on the craft store. Now it's something different. I don't know that I would stick with that, but again, the more you add, and I will play with stuff for days, and then, sometimes you walk away from it, come back in, oh, okay, I'm gonna try this for a while. I've had things that I started out with one thing in mind, and it became something completely different. Sometimes those are the things that turn out the best. This is a matchbox, the bottom of a matchbox box. If that makes sense. I thought a cool thing to do with that, again, I just walk around my house and see what I can find. You don't have to make the objects uniform, but let's say, okay, you painted all of this black and you did some of the metallic accents. Then you could have a color accent and put that in there. And I would probably put a little bit of moss or something behind. There's a million different things you can do. But that, I like that. That kind of takes it away from they all have to be the same color, they all have to be uniform. There's just so many different ways you can do it. Nice. Buttons are great. A little Monopoly house. And again, you just want to do different things, different textures, different sizes, different materials. Even though they're all going to be black, it's still, this is something that's more fluid. This has that texture. This button is something that I have not yet touched, but that detail on it just cries out for something. So now it becomes something else. And you wouldn't immediately look at that once it's hooked on there correctly and say, oh, that's a button. It kind of fades into the background. So again, we've got the book pages are giving us some texture and making it look like this is not a bunch of stuff we threw on the table and started gluing. Everything that you add just gives it more. I would probably, when I was done, a nice thing to do, I don't know that it's going to work because this stuff is still wet, but you can outline stuff, and that gives it more of a deliberate feel. I don't think it's going going to work because it's wet.
I got a little bit of time.
Yeah, and then I would do around here, because you just want to make it look like this is planned. You know, you planned as far as it's not just a bunch of random stuff. You just want to find a way to unify it. And it doesn't have to be all the same color. It can just, really whatever strikes your fancy. And the good thing about it is, until you use the Evil 6000, you can play with it. Once you do the Evil 6000,
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. And I might even do, I've seen people do different, you know, if you do all shimmery, there's some blue to do that. You know, you could do a rainbow of color. It doesn't, it's whatever, I want to add some of this, I want to add some of that. You decided on blue and gold. Get another one of those burlap flowers, and just keep, and notice how I'm kind of keeping stuff away from other stuff. You want to vary. Okay, here's one of the burlap flowers, so I don't want to put them on next to each other, but I could also do that. And now I've created more texture. I don't know if this will work or not. Again, this is a piece of that cloth. But, you know, you could do something like that. You can paint it or not paint it. You can make it shimmery. But pretty much that's what you're going to do. And take your time with it. Walk away from it, come back to it, play with the way things are arranged. It's very, once you get into it, it's very relaxing and allows you to just kind of go somewhere else in your head. Just one more thing I wanted to mention. This is actually a ceramic angel that had feather wings. The nice thing about it is it's a big focal point. You want to just, and again, depending on the size, the other piece was larger. But you kind of want to, the rule is to keep people's eye moving around the canvas to give it some interest. Letters and numbers are great for this kind of art. I don't even know, I think it's a G. But yeah, just absolutely have fun with it, play with it. There are no mistakes, just if you don't like it, take it off, add something else, add it back. But yeah, it's very fun. And you can do a lot of things with it. So enjoy it. Have a great day.